Ever since I was a young and I was into rapping 20 years later and I'm still here yapping. Guess I got so much to say, so I'm trying to educate all of us. I hope together we can elevate. Time flies and our life is moving so fast. What's the forecast? Good vibes to be broadcast. So come and chill with me as we let the bad vibes blow past. This is Shout Out Podcast.
All good? You're good? Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Shout Out Podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to again, thank everyone that's been supporting this podcast, and especially a lot of friends and families who reach out to me via social media or even on WhatsApp and message me these such nice feedback and positive comments, and it's really encouraging. And thank you so much for everyone who supports this. Today's guest, he's a man on a mission. He's a very inspirational person. He's someone that along with me shares a huge passion for sports amongst many other things, and I feel he's a great role model for the youth of our state today, for Nagas in general. And welcome my dear friend Mr. Colo Mero.
Thank you, Asalie.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for making it down from Koima just for this. Let's start with the road. How was the roads? Dimapur Koima, the highway?
Oh, the roads are bad. Just happy that it's under construction, and very soon we'll be having perhaps one of the best roads in our state.
Right.
Yeah.
I just tweeted about this sometime back. The roads in Nagaland, or at least the Dimapur Koima highway, presents like a perfect analogy for life. Most of the times in life, it'll be smooth sailing, but there will be some times when it's bumpy, and that describes the condition the situation of our road and also of life.
True.
What's been going on with your life during the last, I asked this for all my guests, the last year and a half during the pandemic? How has that been for you? What have been your, the challenges? What have been some things that you took away from it? Share with us.
Pandemic has been very challenging for me as far as work is concerned. I'm a very sociable person. I'm always with people. Church, society, family, and my activities are also such it's mostly to do with going places, meeting people, and so pandemic has directly affected my activities. I'm kind of person who's so difficult to be just confined at home,
Right. Yeah.
I'm a very mobile person, so
Same here,
pandemic was very, very challenging for me. It has affected my works. Most of my work, especially businesses, are event related and restaurants, sports. And so all these are directly affected. So I have to resort to some other ways. And that's what led me to spend most of my time in my village, Chizami, leading me to get into farming activities, some construction works here and there. And spending time with the community, because many things in the villages were still more or less normal. So that was what kept me in the village for most of the pandemic period.
Yeah, you got into so many, you're into so many things. Anyway, we'll discuss that in detail later. But recently you got into farming, with organic farming, and thank you for bringing so much local produce, proper organic vegetables.
And pleasure to share with you.
Yeah, that was really nice. This new small segment that I'm going to start Shout Out Podcast with is called the Shout Out, obviously, and it's something that I want to do for every episode. So I want to start off by shouting out a fellow Naga, and I'd like the guest to also do the same. So I'll start it off by I want to give a shout out to Take One Studio. This is my sister-in-law Cecino's company studio. She runs Take One Studio based out of Koima. They do lovely movies, films, documentaries, etc. The recent series they started is called The Passion Fruit. You guys should check it out. The things will pop up. Their accounts and whatnot will pop up. So please do check it out. Passion Fruit. It's along the lines of this podcast, because it celebrates a person's passion, and also it just celebrates people in general. So Take One Studio, and especially Passion Fruit, the new series. And what about you?
Well, I'd like to shout out very loud, in fact, Chizami Weaves is an initiative of an enterprise, an agency promoting and preserving Naga textiles. It's also engaging about 700 women from 3 districts of Nagaland.
That's amazing. That's
So this is a very exciting venture initiative, sustaining a lot of homes through women. I'd like to request those who are on this on this episode to check out Chizami Weaves on Facebook and even in their website.
Yeah, we'll put up all their accounts. Yeah, definitely. But that number, you told me about this earlier, but 700 is not a small number.
Yeah.
You know, so respect and shout out to Chizami Weaves. I want to take us back because this is the part of the podcast which I feel, you know, the audience also relates to because they get to know you a little more personally. So by that, you have to take us all the way back to your childhood. Tell us, go ahead. Give us a history lesson, if you will.
Well, I'm, if I may say, I'm 50 now.
Congrats on that, by the way. Congrats.
Thank
on
you.
That. Yes.
In our times, it's not like now. We grew up in the jungles and football fields. I remember most of my childhood was spent either in the football field or in the jungles. Climbing buildings, climbing trees, looking for birds' nests. You know, this TV and mobile things which keeps most children, most teenagers at home like now, were not there in our times. So things were, you know, like very natural and exciting in those. We learn through doing and experiencing directly with nature, with people. So if I look back to childhood years, I think it's very simple and very exciting. I wish that our children can also go back to do away all these gadgets and modern things and, you know, like get to experience some of those childhood experiences that we have had.
But I think that's inevitable. I mean, the way technology is progressing.
True.
There's the good with it, there's the bad with it. We all know. So, but I guess finding a balance of how technology must be used is very important.
It has developed over a period of time, and then I think all these are important. But what I would say is balancing all this.
Right.
The village life and then the, you know, like a city life, town life, all this, if you can, you know, balance well, it's going to be very, very exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
What about your education? How was your education? Where you?
I studied in quite a number of schools.
Okay.
Started from government primary school where my mother was a teacher. Then after a few years, I joined the church-run school, Eastern Mission High School, in my village, Chizami. Till class 5, I was there. Then class 6 and 7, I went to Kohima and studied in Baptist High. And then that was, you know, the first year I was okay. I used to be a typical nice Sunday school, you know, like a kind of a boy. When I went to Kohima, especially the second year, the movies came, especially the movie hall in Assam Rifles, that got into my life, and, you know, like I find myself watching movies every week. And then the Kohima local ground became a place where I started, if I may say, I started playing cards and gambling.
Oh.
And so those two things, the movies and the gambling things in the ground without going to school properly, came in the way of my education, and then I flunked.
This was what class were you in at this time?
Class 7.
Class 7.
Class 7.
Youngster. Okay.
Yes, class 7, and then, you know, having to experience all those.
Right.
All over Kohima with my catapult, shooting birds, especially sparrows. Then I failed, and then I decided to go back to village. These 2 years in capital city, my whole family was up against me going back to the village, but I thought I deserved going back to the village. Since I failed to make the most use of staying and studying in Kohima, I decided they couldn't stop me. I went back to the village and then studied in government high school and grew up from there. But that failure taught me lessons, like especially in my student career. So academically, like I am a government school kind of a
Product.
but I'm proud to be someone who came from that kind of a background. If can reach some level and understand and do some things, the little that I have achieved or done today, today's children studying in the best of educational institutions right here in our state,
Yes.
or even beyond. There's so much expectation from them, and they can achieve so much.
Right.
If people from village schools can also reach some levels,
Yeah.
our children today can reach, so high. And
I think that's a beautiful example, that like how you very modestly put it, that if you can achieve whatever little that you have, like your words, then from being from like a government school product, then why shouldn't others be inspired, right? And that's a beautiful message. But a lot of thought has to be given into that also, because I would credit you specifically for this, in the sense there are cases like you and some other people who have succeeded through that the model of the government schools, which is unfortunately not such a good condition, and we know the realities of what it is. So I would give more credit to the individual than the institution, but that's just my opinion. And I feel like there like you, there are others also who have succeeded through those conditions, if we can put it
formal
like that.
education that way, I think I was the kind of person who will not only learn from schools, but I spent a lot of time interacting with elders, especially grandparents and uncles, aunties, senior people, teachers, any professional. If I'm not, if they don't chase me away, I'll hang around them, even late night also, sit up, dozing and listening to them. That's how I grew up and learned things about life, about church, about life in general, in fact. So that was one aspect which educated me to quite an extent, besides the formal schooling.
Right. I really appreciate that. I think I find myself similar in that aspect, that I like to learn as much as I can in whatever capacity I can through all these other means. And I think it's a nice thing to develop, trying to learn of anything and anywhere, trying to get inspiration, knowledge from any source.
Yes,
I think that's really nice. And
exactly.
yeah, unfortunately I'm not a big fan of our education system, not just our state, but just in general in our country also. But growing up past your initial stages of your your early childhood, your schooling, what were some of the goals that you were like, what ambitions did you go through phases? Tell us about that.
Right from my high school days, I think I was quite different, aspiring to become civil servant or doctor, engineer, teacher. Those were not with me right from the beginning. I've always wanted to be a social worker. I want to be with people. I want to do what I can to help my people. Can be through the church or through the society. It can be any platform, but I want to be a social worker. I want to be with people. Somewhat little that I know about government service in those years also. To me, I thought like sitting behind the desk and, for 30 or odd years from home to office, back to home kind of work.
That was not you.
That was not me. And so those were out, in spite of the encouragement and force and like all those pressures that I also had to face, like any other Naga young man, young person. And so I grew up, and then doing what I love to do today, social service. And in that, I have picked sports as a tool. We all need some kind of tool, like to catch or to reach out to people.
Right.
Music is one thing. Sports is another thing, which are like a sure catch, especially the younger generation. And there's so much happening.
Right.
As far as music is concerned in our state, in and through the church and outside of the church, and government also has picked up to quite an extent, and so much happening.
Definitely.
And so for me, like when music, so much is happening. Why not sports? And so I went into sports and formed what is called Life Sports. And it's an initiative to reach out to communities, especially young people, through sports. And that's what keeping me going, working with the communities.
So
till today,
getting into your career and what you've been doing for the past many years, I'm well acquainted and I'm aware of so many of these things, but I want to go in depth because we have plenty of time. I want us to take our time and discuss all these things, and hopefully the audience also gets to learn a lot more.
I hope we will not bore them.
And I don't think so. I find it very interesting. So I want you to start off by just explaining to the people what it's life ministry. Everything comes under life ministry, right?
Yeah, life ministries.
Right,
Yeah.
life ministries. I beg your pardon. Life ministries. So under life ministries, you have life sports, your mission through sports. You have life enterprises, your businesses through that, and you do like social services and so many other things.
Yeah.
So I want you to start with life ministries. How it started, like you were just talking about it a little bit, but what was your thought process? What were your ambitions back then when you first started it? When did you start it? Like, let's start there.
Well, if you'll allow me, like it goes back to my college days. I was very actively involved in a students ministry called the UASI. At the student level, it is called Evangelical Union, EU. And so I was literally, spiritually speaking, I was born and brought up in this ministry. And that led me into, being with the young people all throughout, especially students, all throughout my student days, even as a student. And I always wanted, I love people and I always love to be with people, especially young people. And as a student then, it's so exciting to be with students, particularly college and university students. I could not become a staff of the ministry, but I wanted to be with students, so I decided to join a college then and teach. Not so much of an academic person, but simply because I wanted to be with students and I love students, I joined Japfü Christian College.
Japfü Christian College.
Yes. From the first year of college itself, I went there to be there for 3 years.
Okay.
Specifically, but I ended being there for 9 years. I don't know how time flew and so exciting.
What year was this? Your 9 year, from which year?
96 to 2005 I was there in Japfü Christian College.
Okay.
I was teaching and I was also in charge of the ministry as a chaplain. And so having gone through that process and reached out to hundreds and thousands of students, even in those years, so exciting. And after having spent, because I'm not so much of an academic person, I wanted to, move on.
Right.
I look at, by then I have narrowed down to music and sports. But like I said, so much happening.
With music already.
Yeah, with music. So why not something else? And that's where music, sports came. Not a professional sports person. Average sports person in a few games, but not very good, but very passionate about sports. We'll get into that.
Yeah,
later.
definitely we'll get into that later.
Two crazy sports fans are here.
Right.
So decided to start a new mission. There's so many ministries and parachurch ministries in our land. Why another mission? Why another ministry? I can easily join a church or some already existing.
Right.
But because mine is sports, ministry through sports, there is hardly any ministry which does that. Consider church. Church will do 1 day, 2 day sports in a year and call it sports ministry. And for me, I want to do every day. And so I could not find any ministry which will do and use sports every day and
As a
do
tool,
ministry as
yeah.
a tool. And so that was when I decided to venture into this. And
Life
so,
sports as
life sports.
mission through sports.
Yes.
Under your life ministries
Yes.
umbrella. Yes.
So life ministries, it's under life ministries, it's it's entrepreneurship, it's sports and community services. Life enterprises is the business part of all my mission activities. I'm not from a business background. and neither am I interested in business in those years. But when I started my sports mission, I realized it's very, very expensive, and we cannot be depending on the government, and we cannot be depending on sponsors all the time for every big and small event. Going around places, home to home, looking for sponsors. So I said, there's a limit to how many times we can go to the same agency or the same people looking for sponsorship. That's where I started considering business and started some businesses.
And can you just, I mean, I'm aware of most of them, but can you just tell us a little bit of the different businesses that you run under Life Enterprises?
I have I run restaurants. I was running Dimorikov from 2006 to 2018. For 12 years. 12 years, we were at Dimorikov. In those years, Dimorikov was one of the only resorts in the whole state. So it was so exciting for us. Beautiful place, huge space. It's a restaurant, it's a lodging. We have other recreational activities for churches and families. So today, we are also running restaurants. We have one here in Dimapur, but unfortunately, pandemic has come on the way. The King Chili.
Yes.
And so, if anyone loves good food, especially Naga food, you're most welcome.
We'll promote it for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And then we're into sports businesses. We deal with sports goods. Sports equipments. And then we are into events. We have what is called life tents. It's a hiring house
based in Kohima, right?
Yeah, based in Kohima. So we are into some small construction works and activities. So all of these are related in some way or the other, and we do these things to raise even a little fund to sponsor our own mission activities. But it's challenging, and I wish we can dwell a little more time.
Well, definitely, we'll get into detail on this. I just wanted you to give a brief sort of introduction to the audience, especially who may not be aware of what you do, and under Life Ministries, what exactly are there. And now I want to get into a little deeper into that. And why don't we start with life sports? Your mission through sports. Take us through your journey in detail, because obviously when the NPL was running, you had your Life Sports FC, your football club, which that maybe a lot of people knew about and heard about because of the NPL platform. But it started way before that, and it's been continuing after that. So if you can just tell us a little more detail about what your mission through sports, what it does.
Life Sports is an initiative to transform communities through sports. And we chose football in particular. I'm also passionate about the sports, and I see this to be one of the most popular and most engaging sports in our state. Definitely. And therefore we chose, of all the sports, we chose football, because this can be a daily thing and it can be ongoing throughout the year and for all times. And so we got into that, and then we started as a kind of mission or church sports, just a tool to engage young people for fellowship and prayer, through sports. But after, a year or so, I, saw a lot of talent in the boys, especially in those days, initial years, only boys. So, so much talent in them that if given the right support and proper training, I kind of started believing that some of these boys can become professionals, even though they start very late. With a little training that we were giving them, started believing and dreaming. And that's where I started, doing some professional things in our own ways, engaged some trained coaches. And then I was keeping around 30 boys in my house. They were living with me in my house. That we're very grateful to my wife and family. Keeping around 30 boys for about 2-3 years. Daily, a few hours in the morning, few hours in the evening, from home to the ground, and training and taking care of them, their accommodation, their food. And so that was how we started training the boys. I wanted to do what I can, the best that I can, and see, what can happen to these boys if we give them the best of training available in those days. Then started getting very challenging. Those sports is very expensive, from food to sports kits to accommodation to transport to all this became very, very challenging. One tournament is okay, but 1-2 years constantly became challenging. But I didn't want to give up because I want to bring it to fruition to see to what extent it can happen.
Like what possibilities are there?
And so it was around that time that NPL was announced.
Nagaland Premier League.
Nagaland Premier League was announced. So we were very, very excited. We were already, under preparation for about 2 years without even knowing that NPL was
coming up.
Yes. Hoping that some kind of league will happen, but we had no idea. And so when that happened, we were, I think, the most excited team or club in those years. And then it happened, and then we started, preparing, and then we participated, and then the challenges that we had to go through, I reached a point where I feel like how best we become in our own standards, we're still not good enough to compete at the national, not to talk about international. We're still nowhere, even at the national level. The best of footballers and the best of teams cannot even qualify playing second division I-League also. Not to talk about the whole club. 1-2 players also cannot even get into I-League second division also, which was very, very, challenging for us. But we kept believing, and then we kept doing. Expensive, and we don't have corporate houses which will sponsor our football or sports initiatives in Nagaland. We call, people who sponsor jerseys worth 5,000 or 10,000. We call them sponsors, and we have those kind of sponsors only, not the kind who will spend multi-lakh or crore.
The real ones that you need,
the real
for
ones. Those kind of supports are not there. Even till today, I think we don't have that kind of sponsors. And so in Nagaland situation, like if the government department, sports department do not come in and take care of these needs and challenges and create opportunities for private agencies, clubs and individuals to do it continue. One time is fine, but consistently, to keep doing this, I think it's very challenging. That's where live sports also reach some kind of level, and then we stopped doing quite a number of senior level football
professionally.
The
professional aspect. You still continued with the mission through sports, obviously.
Yes, that is still there. But as far as senior level, professional focused training and activities are concerned, so those we have discontinued for now, for quite a number of years now.
I genuinely hope that this can come back into the picture, because as obviously you're aware, I was one of the co-founders and the people behind Nagaland Premier League, and the vision that we had behind it was it was quite, maybe even far-fetched, maybe too big for us also. But what we tried to do and what we achieved for a couple of years was we were very grateful for the support, and for the people like you, the people who believed in this, the league and the dream, and that it needed something like this. Nagaland needed something like this. But I don't want to defend myself and or get into all the, because that story is, it's not spoken about, and people don't know the actual reason. So I don't want to get into that blame game. But I definitely hope that something like that will pick up again, and we will definitely be discussing this, right? Like sports in the later part. But I think I hope your Live Sports FC can come back to life in the sense that professional aspect of it also, and what you're doing with the mission is great, and I hope that it gets revived. And in regards to Life Enterprise, now you are doing so many things, live sports, your enterprises, your businesses. just one thing before we get into enterprises. Which is your favorite amongst these? Like, you're juggling so many things, but which is your favorite amongst this? I think I already know the answer, but I have to ask.
My businesses,
No, just from your whole life ministries, everything.
sports.
Yeah, it's very obvious. And what about from your life enterprises? Which one do you find fun, or
Food
your
businesses.
favorite? The food business.
Yeah, I'm very excited about food, especially Naga food.
So the King Chili, as it's called, no?
Yes.
Your restaurant in Dimapur, that serves Indian and Chinese and Naga cuisine.
Naga cuisines, yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. It's very unfortunate, but that's the situation that we're in, and running so many different businesses. I'm talking about you, like with your life, under your life enterprises umbrella. Tell us about your experiences, the struggles also, and the things you face on a daily basis, maybe, or besides this. Let's leave this pandemic, aside, but just generally speaking.
We are so-called Christian state, and it is very sad to note that running businesses the Christian way, or keeping the ethics of businesses, is so difficult in a state like ours. Sad to say, but people who don't follow ethical businesses, or who resort to all kinds of businesses thriving right around you, about you, in front of you.
Yeah, left, right, everywhere.
Left, right, everywhere. And you try to follow some kind of Christian principle or some good principles. You don't cheat, you try to be honest, you try to deliver the best of services and goods, and you struggle. Not to talk about thriving, you even struggle to survive.
Just to survive, right.
And so I see many good business people, good business houses, keeping good principles, dying natural deaths. If in a state like Nagaland, if we cannot run businesses or do businesses the Christian way, the moral way, I don't know where it can happen in a country or even elsewhere. So this is one huge challenge that I'd like to pose. And I refuse to give up. I'm one person who refused to be discouraged and refused to give up. Hoping that God, in His own time and way, will surely bless and honor the efforts that we are putting in.
Yes.
And so this is where one of the big challenges can be also the multiple taxation that the businesses have to go through.
Yes.
I, for one, I'm that way. I don't know, privileged or blessed, whichever way. If I can say openly here, I don't pay tax.
You have never come across this issue?
They come.
Okay.
But how can I pay to 10, 12 groups? It's literally not possible. If they have some issues, if they have some needs personally, it's a sickness or some genuine case, it's not tax, but whatever is possible, I can help. I can, do what I can to help them out. But if it is as tax, it's not just possible, because we give to one and then the others also will come. It's an open secret, and therefore we face challenges every now and then. When leadership in these groups change, they come to us also. But one thing I tell them, I also am in a mission in nation building. These are the activities that I do through sports, through social services, through mission. These are the things that we do through running these businesses to help our people, and these are the things we actually do. And therefore we are also in nation building. We are also in our own rights like national workers that way. And so let us mutually support one another. You don't disturb us, we don't disturb you. Otherwise, if it were to be like in my grandfather's time, he's a nationalist and like a hardcore national worker type. Even my grandfather, in their times, I would have loved to support the group. But today, when all the groups, say Naga national political groups, there are about 12, more than 10, and each one of them claiming to be the authentic one, the mandated one. Which one to believe and which one to follow? So it's so difficult. And how can we literally pay these groups from our businesses? Right?
And sorry to cut you off, but just one thing that's been on my mind about this is, and people need to understand that it's not just the business people, the business community who are facing the brunt of this. Majority of them are, of course, because they run physical businesses and they're approached by multiple factions to pay tax, exorbitant, demands are made to them. But each and every one of us, the public, are also suffering the cost of taxes that are being levied at gates.
Yes.
Our essential
Directly
commodities.
or indirectly, all
or
of us are
directly,
paying.
we are being affected
Yes.
by this menace. So, yeah, that's something that I think.
Now, if someone texts me, the only way for me to make up that loss is to raise
the price.
Raise the price.
Naturally,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's the public, is the consumer.
At the end of the day, it's us who are paying
Yes.
the cost. So indirectly or directly, we are being affected by this.
Yes.
Menace.
Yes. So this is very sad. I wish that they come together. So how much we have to pay? I think if they all come together, one government, one tax, I think there is no issue. We'll be excited to get back.
So you are just to put on the record, you are behind that, like, one government, one tax.
Yes.
Okay.
All for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that is something that's lacking in our society from top down, whether it's with the national workers or our politicians or our people in general, is the lack of unity. We don't seem to be united. I mean, our state motto is what? Unity in strength, or strength in unity. That is a far cry from the ground reality.
Unity is the need of the hour. I mean, like the amount of arrogance and hatred amongst the group. One is expecting the other to surrender to the other. In reconciliation, there is no one higher or lower.
Right.
Everyone is equal.
Yes.
And so they all should come together, forgive and forget, if possible, and become one united nation, one united force. That way, I think that's the only way I see for Naga solution to come, for Naga people to be united. As long as we are divided this way, I think
so true.
it's not possible.
We've drifted a little bit apart. I mean, like, away from the topic that was at hand. But regarding your life enterprise, I mean, this obviously is connected to that. But you have so many businesses, and you were telling me about the challenges that you face as a businessman. Besides the issue of tax, also. Besides that, there's so many other challenges you face. And I just want to add one thing here, because you mentioned that you're a very positive person. I love that we share the same trait, and that we are positive. We have a positive mindset. We have a positive outlook on life, regardless of the situation that we're in. And like this podcast is also all about positivity, and something I feel that a lot of the audience should know is that positivity is not just some mantra that you have to chant. And it's I feel it's over a period of time, you that habit grows on you, positivity. Because I also was a very negative minded person. In fact, I till this day, I have to sometimes rein that in. When something happens, I immediately look at it at a negative way. And I feel if we build that habit, then we can do great things having a positive mindset. Coming back
One
to
of the
you,
challenges when it comes to running businesses in Nagaland, I think, is finding professional people, finding hard work. So many of our people, I don't know what kind of a training or education we have received. Our educational certificates are not helping in our profession.
right?
We study anything and become anything in our generation, which is so amusing to me. How I wish we study in line with what we are interested in life.
Correct.
People by virtue of their academic performances, becoming doctors and engineers, maybe even to the extent a boy or a girl, that type who will not even bother to give a glass of water to even their own parents when they are sick, also are becoming doctors by virtue of their academic performances. people who will not be able to do even small construction works at home and all, like even today, like are becoming
big time contractors.
Yes.
And yes.
And so like in Nagaland situation, we become anything and everything. Anyone is becoming a teacher,
Right.
a preacher, or full-time church workers. And so this is something I'm very concerned about, and I believe that this present generation Nagas will get professional and then study, in line with what they wish to become or do in life, so that their educational background or subjects that they study, the stream that they get into, will relate to what they will do in life. It cannot be 100%, that way. Things can change, but on the whole, I think if this can be related, employment and education
Right.
becomes
hand in hand,
meaningful.
right?
Yes.
I totally agree with this. That's why I have a problem with the education system. Millions of us are being taught the same thing, and then there's so many jobs only, what you talked about, maybe technical knowledge, right? And pursuing education that's going to lead up to a certain profession. So where do you think the problem lies with that? Do you think it's parental or societal influence? Is it the education system? What is wrong? Why is it not happening like that? And instead we have thousands and thousands of students who are just studying and mugging up and not actually learning any trade or craft, and just becoming one small part of the big rat race.
Say because I also run my own enterprise, I'm always on the lookout for people who are willing to work. It's important for our young people today to develop professionalism in whatever they do. We want easy money, we want easy job, but the best of salary and facilities, these things do not go together. We're not willing to work 2-3 hours a day and we call it hard work. If someone will work 7 hours a day, he will rest tomorrow, day after also, we call this hard work. That's why many people who go to the cities to work in the name of looking for job, or many of them come back citing various reasons, whether this, that, all kinds of reasons. But one thing I know, it's laziness, I think, for many.
I agree with that. Laziness is a big factor amongst a lot of
in a restaurant like mine, my staff work up to 12 to 15 hours a day. Very difficult to find people who will work that long in Nagaland situation.
those working hours, right?
We're only many are looking for 3-4 hours job and getting full pay.
Okay, let's get into your social services, because now you've talked about your life sports, your mission through sports, your life enterprises, which is the businesses that help support the life ministries overall. And then you also have social services, which you do. And you were telling me about this a little earlier, so I want you to share with the people about, the kind of social services that you do through your ministries.
Social action, social activities, reaching out to the needy, especially in the rural areas. I think this is one very important aspect of life. Whichever level we reach, I think it's always, and it's very important to give back to the society. And I don't believe in becoming very, reach some big positions or become very rich only after that you start helping people, I believe in doing charity right from your, startup levels. So this is something I love to do, and then we engage the whole family, or even my larger family, and then people who work with us. The staff, I have about 40 staff and their families. All of us together, we engage ourselves in a lot of social activities and charity works. May not be very big things, but we all give, and we all, reach out to needy people. Not just blindly distributing things around, but we reach out to them, visit them, house to house. Not always, but as and when we can. And we reach out according to their needs. And that way I'm very excited to see a number of my family members and friends and who are closely associated with us engaging in this and joining us in these social activities to help the needy. Can be students, can be old age people,
yes,
sick people. So can be a small help, but reaching out to the needy is always very meaningful and enriching and a blessing.
Right. I definitely feel that it is very enriching, and also the fact that the thoughts, the actions count more than the amount that you're giving or what you're giving, right?
I want to encourage people, to start doing charity works. Yeah, even with your 100, 200, few hundred pocket money that you have, you can even do charity works with that also.
Doesn't have to be like in large amounts.
You don't have to wait to be an officer or a big shot or very rich to start doing charity. Yeah,
I guess charity starts at home, right? Charity starts at home.
It is.
We have to look out for the people that are. We often overlook these people, and some people tend to try and help everyone else, but you often overlook the people that are close to you who are struggling, and maybe it should be automatic that these are the people that you should be helping first, right? Like,
so this something very exciting about this is, you see, even now, like in some ways, there's so many people who are helping me and my family in a number of ways. But we also find ourselves helping some other families in some other ways. So all of us are all the time receiving help, but also giving help. It's give and take always. Can be bigger portion or small portion, or in one way or the other. Some have spiritual needs, some have physical needs, some have issues with their survival, daily food issues. Some have, accommodation issues, educational issues, health issues. There are needs are endless. And so as the Lord inspires, as God inspires, as life as it comes, it's so important to be engaged and do what we can. It can be just a word of encouragement, a prayer.
Yes, exactly.
Or it can be just a food item or a bottle of water or a cloth piece. May not be new but used or whichever. Meaningful giving and meaningful engagement and encouragement is very, very important.
It goes a long way, right?
Yes. I've received a lot in my life and I know how much it means to me. And therefore, I also wish to be that kind of an inspiration and a blessing to the people around me. Yes.
Yeah, that's such a nice thought. I like that. I think we Naga. Do you think we Nagas are philanthropists? Like, do you think we have a giving nature, or do you think we are more of reserved? Because the people in the West seem to be of a very philanthropic nature. Like,
I think we are both. Because we're yet to reach there where we are, like a professional philanthropist and then spending in terms of lakhs and crores, not just one time, but all the time, like I think, I don't know if there is any, but
I mean, there are cases of people.
We're yet to reach that kind of level, but we are that way very generous, very giving.
Yeah, I think we are generally. There are cases of some wealthy, rich people that are very fondly known for their philanthropic nature in our society. But I guess we need more of that, definitely. And like we were just discussing about this, it's not about the amount. It's not, you don't have to be giving in terms of crores, lakhs and all to be making an impact.
Yes.
The action that you do and the gesture is very important. It's very cliche, but it's true, right? Like, people appreciate that, like, sometimes even more than the item or the amount that they're getting. They appreciate the gesture more. In regards to, because all of this, your social services, your life sports, mission through sports, your enterprises, your businesses, all come under Life Ministries, which is eventually all church based, right? It's like the mission, like that you have. So how has your experience been with, like, since you can you call it officially working with the church, or how do you describe your
not really. As far as ministries is concerned, I'm not officially affiliated as such to any church. I'm also a church member. I come from a village church, Chizami, but since my family live in Kohima, we are with a church, we are with City Church. And so the ministry that I run is not officially affiliated to any church as such. And how? But I believe, like, such ministries, including mine and many other missions, if we do right and if you really do God's mission, I believe that these are
Like you're all
extended
part of it, right?
yeah,
Part of the whole.
arms and departments, arms of the church.
The church in general,
Yes,
right?
yes. We do a lot of things where the church may not directly get involved into. How many churches will do regular sports mission?
Correct.
Most will not. I go around churches around the state or even beyond promoting church sports. Very few, like most churches will do just 1-2 days sports. That's their sports ministry. But here and there, many churches are picking up, especially the out churches. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I've
This
noticed
is so
that. Yeah,
important.
they're very.
Yeah.
They comparatively focus more than
Yeah.
the other.
Yeah.
The AO.
So the
especially in
regular
Dimapur
youth activities, the regular youth services, for example, in our churches on a Saturday, out of 500 youth in a church, about 40-50 come to youth fellowship. Even not all the office bearers also come to fellowship. See, so it's like even in fellowship attendance, it's like giving tithe. There's about 10% are hardly coming to fellowship. But if the fellowship is in a football field, have the fellowship around a football match or a volleyball, or it can be any sports, like whichever is their interest. Out of 500, about 100 will come, 200 will come. Can just sit around the gallery or even on a grass and sit. They don't have to be in their formals. They don't have to bring the sound system. Someone can share a testimony. Messages, of course, can be shorter. If they worry about offerings, they can just collect right there also. So there are a lot of things, like you can just do right there. And people who are there in the sports, many of them, they are there because it's football. But if you play football in the football field and decide to go back to the church building for fellowship, half of them will disappear along the way again. So it's important to reach out to where young people are today.
Right. That's a very logical thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Go where the interests are and then engage them there instead of trying to force them to come
I wish our churches reach
Yeah.
out to where people are.
I mean, that's what
Most
you're
people
doing.
are in the entertainment world, in the sports field, or at home. And so it's so important to reach out to where they are. Bring any kind of speaker, bring any kind of music, or sing any kind of music, create facilities. The huge percentage of the church members are not attending fellowships anymore, which is very, very sad, actually.
That's unfortunate. I mean, I want to tie a few things together here, since like we're on the topic of church, and you had also mentioned to me that you had a few issues with it, like how things are generally done here or operated here. That's one, maybe. And also after that, I want to talk about the clean election campaign, because this is one thing. Corruption in Nagaland is something that I think everyone is fed up of, and we keep talking about it, but it's not getting done. But corruption in the electoral process, with the election system, that's one of the main issues. So since we're on the topic of church, some issues that you had about it, and also talk about their role in the clean election campaign. What do you feel about that? And also, what do you feel about the election system that's in place right now?
Before we get into clean election things, I think, I wish our churches. I'm happy and I'm excited to belong to a church which is like a mission-oriented and Bible-based. So we are very, very excited about it. But most of our churches are community-based. It's like is running ministries and activities like social organizations in many of our churches. Because I am a Chagisang, I go to Chagisang church. You are Nanangami, so you naturally go to a Nanangami church. So this, the church should be beyond this. It should be mission, it should be Bible based, it should be, like a evangelistic, worship. All this should be, should have been the driving force of our churches. But today, if we look at it, I think many churches are going very materialistic. teak farms or animal farms and fruit, farms, and all these building projects are becoming more important than building people. Winning souls and nurturing souls, I think, are most important for churches. And once the members are nurtured spiritually, the physical developments and these activities, resources, I believe, will automatically flow.
Improve also.
Any blessed church member, spiritually fed and taught and groomed church member, will surely give back to ministry. Our tithes alone will be enough to run our church missions. But because our members, our churches have become more of social oriented than spiritual. I think the members' focus are also or interest are also losing out on the church, and this is one of the reasons why para church and then independent churches are growing very fast in present day. Any city, any town, anywhere is the independent churches which are growing bigger and bigger.
And what about in relation to clean election? Because this is something that the church, if I'm not mistaken, the church started this, right? The clean election campaign.
Yeah.
And they've been propagating this for do you know
Over a
this?
decade now.
Over a decade now.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm in support of this, obviously, but unfortunately, it's not bearing fruit. So far, it hasn't. So what's your take on this? Like, what's being done wrong about the clean election campaign, or why isn't it working? What should be done also?
Personally, I believe that clean election and clean governance will be our solution. It's a dream, and I wish it comes true sooner or later. When we look at corruption in Nagaland, I think of all the reasons, dirty election politics and party politics is one of the root causes of
Definitely agree to that.
our state corruption. And therefore, clean election is one solution if we can believe and actually do it. The church also have realized this and then taken initiative over I think more than 10 years now. I was privileged to be part of the clean election campaign for a number of years because I'm also passionate about this, and I got myself engaged in that. Now, when we say clean election, I think it has to do with every one of us. From right voting to choosing voting for the right candidate, leading to clean governance. There's so many who are having 2, 3, 4 votes. I'm from Chizami, so I have 1 vote in Chizami. I live in Kohima, so I have another vote there. I have some property in Dimapur, so I have my votes there. I've worked somewhere for a few years, so I have my vote there also. So 2, 3, 4 places. All these things have to change. One man, one vote. And one of the key factors in clean election is buying and selling votes. What level of honesty that we Nagas have gone down to, where we consider people taking money from only one candidate are considered honest. I know it's amusing and amazing that we call those people honest. No? A person taking money from only one candidate are branded
He's an honest person.
Honest person.
Such is the situation that we're in. No?
Yes. And I may be wrong, but as far as I understand, like the old timers, they have to steal development funds while they are in the government so that they can use the money to buy votes.
for the upcoming election.
And the upcoming ones, the new entrants, they have to sacrifice, even personal properties and, so many, take a lot of risk and then, get into it. And if they win, they also have to
recover their money,
their expenses,
and then
all from the development funds. Will Nagas be ready? Not to take money, not to use money, and vote for such people, so that when they win, all the money that will come from the central government, hundreds and thousands of crores, will be all used for actual development.
No, this is something that I have asked to the previous guests also, right? Because clean election, who doesn't want it? I keep repeating this. I sound like a broken record, but everyone wants it. Everyone complains of corruption. No one wants corruption. Why isn't this working? Why when good leaders, honest leaders stand up to fight elections, why are they losing? Why are people still selling their votes? When everyone, if you ask any random person on the street, corruption is one of the things everyone is against in Nagaland.
Yes.
At least externally, that's the thought process.
But when election time comes, again we will go the same old way again.
So you feel it's the public's fault right now?
For me, there are those who blame the leaders and there are those who blame the churches, specifically NBCC for everything and anything. And then there are those who blame the public. But I, for one, blame everyone. Government, the public, the leaders, the church. I think it's a situation where we find ourselves where everyone has to gear up and then do our bit.
Yeah. I like to think myself as a positive person, but I sort of fear that corruption or corrupt practices is like systemic. It's like top down, starts from the highest level, trickles all the way down to the public, to people like you and I also. Everyone has been sort of affected or influenced by this way of life.
Yeah.
And corrupt practices doesn't mean just in terms of crores, like how we're talking about of charity, doesn't mean just in terms of crores and lakhs. It can be just that 10 rupees or that one bottle of water. Likewise with corruption, doesn't necessarily mean have to be in terms of crores and lakhs.
Yeah.
It's small things like corrupt practices, when favoritism and this, that, the list goes on. So I hope that we as a people, I don't know what it's going to take. I'm not that.
Everyone seems to be corrupt in one way or the other, so nobody can check anybody. Kind of situation we are in.
Right. But trying to keep with the theme of positive mindset and positive vibes of the show. I hope it happens sooner or later. The clean election campaign starts working out, and it's obvious if the next 60 MLAs that whoever elected haven't spent like what the previous people are spending, then the hundreds and thousands of crores that we get from the center and from our own revenue is utilized judiciously for, and they don't have to worry about recovering money.
I really hope that leaders will rise up, who will believe in this and then, stand for clean election. And also public will also realize this and vote for such leaders, so that we have tried enough. 60, 70 years of this present style of governance and politics. If people can give a chance to clean election and clean governance and see what can happen. Actual development happening through responsible and committed leaders.
Have you ever considered getting into politics? I'm talking about like mainstream, like literally contesting elections. Have you ever, has the thought, I'm sure it's crossed your mind, but have you ever given serious thought to it?
I'm concerned about politics. For my own living, for my own livelihood, my family, my circle of people. I think without politics also we can survive. But when it comes to helping the community, helping our state, when it comes to development, we need politics. Without political will, without the government, in Nagaland situation,
Right.
just like sports, without the government, we cannot do big things. And when these things are not happening, that's where I began to start having interest in politics. If you want to help our people in a big way, bring development beyond your community, I think getting into politics is the way forward. But in
If you
my
want to
case,
be the change, you have to be the change.
Yeah.
Right? If you want change, I mean, you have to be the change.
start shouting from outside, pinpointing,
Blame game.
game, all these things are not happening. But if you are to follow a principle like clean election, clean politics, given the circumstances and then the practices in our state, I don't know whether that can happen.
Right.
Otherwise, given the chance, for that matter, not I but even you, how to win is the challenge. No, otherwise
Right.
we can get into that seat. Can imagine what will happen to our sports, no?
That definitely, at least I'm confident
our
in that
roads,
aspect. Yeah.
Or our educational system.
But yeah, true. The challenge is that. So I mean, hoping the best for the clean election campaign and the people.
So
I
for
hope that
me,
the people
in my case, it's not that I want to be or not want to be, but wherever God leads me and puts me, any situation where I can be my best with all the passion and commitment and excitement or skills that I have, that God has blessed me with. God puts me in any given situation, any position, any capacity where I can be my best. I'm open for me.
You're ready for the challenge.
Yeah.
I would love to see you in that field if that the circumstances
Time will
happen.
tell.
Yeah, time will tell, definitely. And since we're
Yeah.
let's talk about the present then.
Not so much to become an MLA or minister.
Right. I totally get it. I
Yeah.
totally get it. But yeah, it's not about that. And I think the people who know understand. It doesn't have to be explained that. This is where I want to get into sports. Sports as I want to take time with this. By the way, for the people watching, Colo is he's way senior than me, but we've been friends for a very long time, and we are great rivals in our support for our football Premier League clubs. And this whole, he's wearing a Manchester United FC very nice t-shirt.
That's
I'm wearing
it.
a Chelsea. This was not planned in any way, right?
Not planned.
It just so happened
Yeah.
that we wore this, and I found it very funny also, but very nice that.
I came in United shirt,
Mm.
and Asalie came out in Chelsea.
Right.
shirt.
So we are both super passionate about sports. That is something that I love that we share, and I usually don't talk much in the podcast and let the guests talk, but since this is also a field where I'm also very passionate about, I want to be giving my opinion a little more on this topic. But for you, sports, how did that passion, the love of sports, how did it start? And just before we get into what you're doing right now, but how did it build up the whole passion for sports?
Like I said, in our childhood, we grew up spending most of our time in the sports field, football field. My house is near the football field, only in my village.
Right.
So in the jungles, in a football field, that's how we started. I developed interest in sports, but didn't play so much. But as I grew older, I think sports stars, football stars like Maradona. Maradona perhaps will be one of the first persons who inspired me. Late 80s. Those days, TVs were not like now. I don't know which year the TV came also in our.
But it was very uncommon.
Yes, very uncommon.
Yeah, very rare.
So we read about them, posters. I remember putting up Paulo Rossi's poster, Italian footballer, in my room in late 80s. That was the first poster I put up, I think. So players like him, Maradona, and today Messi, but in those days like Maradona, Batistuta. So all those were the ones who inspired me, especially to get into football and follow football. Start following Brazil football because of the kind of game, the culture, football culture that they have.
Right.
Then I even supported, like Italy because of who is that? The Divine Ponytail.
Roberto
Baggio. I even painted, like his name and numbers on my shorts,
Right.
So things started like that, and around 90s, I started following Manchester United for a few reasons. I think in those years, they were doing really well, and another reason was they are red.
Your favorite color?
Yeah, my favorite color, and so naturally a champion team, and then red in color.
Automatic choice.
Automatic choice. So I don't remember supporting any other club, that way. So from 1990 till today, I think about 3 decades now following Manchester United.
That's
very
a long
happy.
time, yeah. And just share with us also how it's not just football, like we said, we're sports fans in general.
Yeah.
Right? And you were just telling me about how you're watching the Gary Kasparov Vishwanathan chess match also on TV. Yeah.
I follow all kinds of sports.
Me too. Yeah.
I read about them. Like I was mentioning in one of our talks, I even watch for hours Gary Kasparov and Vishwanathan playing chess on TV. And then wait for Sports Star magazine to come so that I can read about the details of their game again. So reading from cover to cover, collecting those magazines and posters, watching and following on TV. I don't play cricket, but I follow the game. I've even watched full test match, 7 days I think. It was the year Kumble took 10 wickets against Pakistan.
Yeah, right.
Against Pakistan. And so I follow and I watch literally almost all games. Very passionate.
Right.
But of course, nothing beats football. Football on average 10 to 15 hours a week. I watch live. Before, after, read, follow. So it's a whole lot of time.
It's your second religion.
True.
And for me, I share the same passion with you. I'm as super enthusiastic about sports. I love all sports, and I think it was genetically also. I was telling you, I think genetically is also it's in my genes, because my maternal uncles, my mom's brothers were all champion sportsmen. They were in St. Edmunds and Shillong. Hockey, cricket, football. One uncle was even a national champion in swimming, and their trophy cabinet at my grandmother's house was full of trophies. And on my paternal side, my father was a great footballer, as I'm told by many of my uncles and his friends, and he went on to played in Assam and Nagaland, and he went on to captain our state team. And he later went on
football.
In football.
Okay.
In the 70s. I'm not sure of the exact date and all, because data was not there now. It was not recorded much. But he went on to start and become the founder of Nagaland Athletics Association and Nagaland Archery Association. And these are all influences in me. I feel that that passion, I got it from my family and from genes. And also while growing up, I became there's this funny story about when I was born. I have a huge birthmark mole on my right shin. So when I was born, my father was proclaiming that my son is going to be a football star, which unfortunately it didn't turn out to be. But ever since, I've been a huge fan of sports. I've played every sports, and not good enough. I honestly feel I'm not good enough. My goals to reach that level, it was not good enough. But I've played every sport. I've been a fan of every sport, and coming to the point where, like, people like you and me, because this is the discussion that we're heading into. You, besides your life sports mission, you are the vice president of Nagaland Football Association.
Yeah.
Correct. Right now at present, I'm also just recently joined the Nagaland Athletics Association. I'm joint secretary there. So I find it very. It's so nice that to see people like you, and I'm also happy to be in the position, who are passionate about sports, getting into associations and trying to become active agents of change, and bring development of the sports industry, development of sports persons, however it may be. So I'm really excited that I'm entering this new phase of my life, and I'm happy that people like you are in it also. And this is the discussion that I want to continue right now, starting with Nagaland football and our the condition that football is in generally in Nagaland. Let's start with just you giving your general thoughts about it right now. The state of football in Nagaland.
I think the present status of Nagaland football is a little pathetic, professionally speaking. We are hardly, managing to participate at the national levels. In fact, failing to participate and make our presence felt at the national level. For which reason, we're going to face a lot of it. Right now, the pandemic actually is saving us to some extent. But if the pandemic is, if it is not for this issue, going the way we are going now, we're going to be nowhere in football. I, for one, I wish that we all come together and develop these beautiful sports and take where it can, given the right support, training, and opportunities. I believe that Nagaland footballers, both boys and girls, can become professional. But there is hardly any grassroots, serious grassroots training. From college level, 19, 20-year-old boys developing serious interest and trying to train and all. I mean, starting that late will get us nowhere. At the most, 1 or 2 may get into national level.
Yes.
Even right now, we have only 4 or 5 who have reached I-League level. No one in the ISL as yet.
Yes.
And so for me, for Nagaland football to develop, for that matter, all other sports, grassroots football, school football, village levels football, sports is key to developing professional sports persons in our state. We need to streamline our football activities in the state. Everyone is cushy type. From footballers to associations to coaches to referees,
top down, A to Z. Everyone is equal in blame, right?
ISS and NFA official, I think, will also take responsibility for so many failures on our part. We are a new team. Just when we were, got into the NFA team with a lot of excitement. We wanted to bring change. We wanted to start doing a lot of things, and then the pandemic
happened. Yes.
Came. It's not an excuse as such, but I think every department we have to, come together, from players to coaches to the officials to referees to players. All of these stakeholders in the football setup have to come together. Blaming one another, playing the blame game is not going to help us.
I totally agree with you on this, because you've spoken for football in particular because you're with the association, but this speaks largely in volume for the whole condition of sports in Nagaland, right? Do you agree with that? This is not just for football. It's like what you explained sort of perfectly explains what's happening with the situation of sports in Nagaland right now. And people need to understand, society needs to understand that sports is such a huge, I mean, I'm just talking in terms of financial numbers, but it's like what sports today is a $500 billion industry. It has millions and millions of employment opportunities, and we need to encourage more of this. I feel it's not encouraged enough. I keep saying this, that like it's a good thing that music is doing well. At least it's picking up in the past few years, especially with Music Task Force, which eventually came into TAFMA. So Sports Task Force could be an option for fast tracking the development of growth. True. That's one option.
I wish that happens.
Yeah, something like that along those lines, right?
We need that kind of focused development and programming, streamlining.
And are you aware that there's no Sports Task Force, but we have a state sports council?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, it's defunct. I think it's defunct. I think it's defunct.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily have to be a Sports Task Force. That maybe our Nagaland State Sports Council, like all the states of India has their sports council, state sports council, that can be revived and injected with people who are passionate and have experience and are capable into that council, and then take it from there.
As far as sports is concerned in our state, more than professional, it is a social activity for us now when it comes to sports.
Yes.
And so for too long and for so long, it has not gone beyond the level of socializing, and it's like spending time, energy, funds, entertainment, food. More non-sporting activities, are getting all the attention. So-called sports funds in village, from village level to top level, 80-90% of the funds are used in non-sporting activities. Hardly 10-20% used for sports activities. There are sports associations, or even in my village level, a KEL, one colony, will generate about 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. Hardly 10%, 20% will be used for preparing sports kits and sports training. The remaining 80-90% will be spent on buffaloes and pigs and like
the festivities,
dog meat and chicken, so-called to nurture the sports persons. But we are not willing to buy even a good set of jerseys for sports persons, which I want to encourage all the village sports level associations, the area and then district level associations to refocus themselves in spending their resources and funds on sporting activities, from training to actual sports kits,
right,
and activities during the sports events. We are event oriented. Much of our funds, we have little fund, but the little fund that we have also are spent wrongly actually.
You mentioned this, and I'm this is also my thought. I share the same thought. Everyone is to be blamed, maybe not equally, but everyone is to be blamed. Let's start with the government, past, present government. Let's start with the people in that department. Let's start with the associations. People are holding posts in associations. Let's start with coaches and the training staff, all the way down to the players. The players who are not disciplined enough or don't have ambitions, and then it trickles all the way down to the public also, because indirectly they are also hampering the potential of sports, because they see it, like you said, as just a hobby, or as just they don't see it as a potential career space. They don't see it as an industry that could be providing us with revenue, employment, so many things.
Yeah.
So the blame game is there. Like, let's take that out of the picture. Everyone is to blame. What can we do from here? What, for you, in your opinion, being a stakeholder of sports in Nagaland, what are you going to aim at, or what do you think is the first areas that we need to start targeting to make a change in? Is it with the associations? Is it with the government department? Is it with the players? What do you think is the main approach?
As far as I'm concerned, I think in specifically football, we're still in the basics level professionally. We're hardly existing, we are hardly functioning under the AIFF. So for us, like, we have to start from the level of registering our players, young and old, boys and girls, registering our football coaches, our referees, streamlining our association and activities, come up with football calendars. Right now there is no calendar. 3, 4, 5 major tournaments can also happen simultaneously. So many things, and proper leagues, except 1 or 2, like a few districts are doing leagues, but the rest are not. And so everything is, like a freestyle and not professional as such. So I wish that we streamline all of this. It's going to take time, but
Definitely it will take
sooner
time.
or later we have to, start doing all this, so that 1 year, 2 years, or at least by the end of our tenure, a few years down the line, if we can at least streamline all these things, and then proper training programs and activities can start happening. Otherwise, right now it's random and hit and run type of training and program all the time. And government also, like, either they don't spend, or any fund or any funding that comes also is mostly for events. I wish the state government, the YRS in particular,
Right.
invest more in training than just supporting in terms of lakhs and crores for the events. Events are also important to
Right.
showcase and to
Right,
create
right.
platform for the sports persons. But more importantly, I think investing in training will be good. And as far as coaches are concerned, I think now they are already, most are already employed in the government. But how I wish all sports coaches are on contract basis. Pay them well, even lakhs a month, just like in professional football clubs. They perform, they are there, get highly paid. They don't perform, they are out.
Exactly.
That way our sports persons and our sports teams and any sports, any discipline, I think can come up.
Yeah, they'll be kept on their
Not to
toes.
blame those
Yeah.
coaches who are already in service, but I think this will also inspire them to perform.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Yeah.
To keep them in check,
Yes.
to make sure that they don't slack off just because they've got the job now. Yeah, I agree with that. In addition to what you said, because like we said, where do we start? Like we were just discussing this earlier, right? Like when it comes to the sports industry or development of sports in general, everything is so broken.
I
Like
know.
the system, the infrastructure is missing. The even the Josh is not there, amongst the people that
See,
sports
for
would
some
be-
states, only the infrastructure is missing,
Right.
or only the coaches are missing. So for them, it's easy to just focus on that specific area and then invest and then develop. For us, it's every aspect of sports. Where to start? So all of us, including the community, government alone supporting these ventures cannot. Any sports anywhere which is community, for example in Mizoram, most of their football clubs and sporting activities are community based. The community even come forward to support their local football clubs. Whereas a whole household, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, like that. But when hundreds and thousands of household comes together, it sustains a club.
Right.
That kind of culture has to come even in our case. Annual area tournament, like a district tournament, all these things are not going to bring out professionals. All these are fun, social in nature, and therefore, in the end, it's amounting to wasting time, money and energy.
resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
I yes, there's, like you said, everything, and we keep repeating this, but not to sound pessimistic or negative, but that's the ground reality. But what can we do from here that should be the main question.
Yeah.
Why keep blaming past, present government or whoever is there? Why spend our energy on that when instead we could be focusing it on what is the solution?
Yeah.
And that's the whole positive. The thing behind trying to keep a positive mindset.
People like you and I who are in the sports associations, we give our best and do what we can,
Right.
what we are expected. Coaches also do their best. keep getting themselves upgrading, keep training, keep learning, keep themselves up to date, dedicated, and keep training the boys and girls, especially grassroots level. The football, not just football persons always only football. Sports officials, the referees, I think it's important to keep themselves updated. If we look at our tournament, our competitive matches, any sports, it's very pathetic to still see the conduct of our games, like way below the standards of the day.
Correct.
Today, like the TVs and all these are too good that even spectators are aware of the latest rules, whereas our officials are outdated in a lot of ways, except for a few who are keeping themselves up to date, but they cannot be everywhere all the time. And therefore I challenge even the referees, the officials of the various disciplines, especially football, to get themselves trained, become state referees, national referees if possible, even hope to see even international referees coming from our state.
Right.
It's a huge opportunity, challenge, excitement. It can be also a huge profession for them, not just like namesake, choto moto, get hajira and then conduct here and there type of but it can be really professional venture for them also. So infrastructure wise also, if the state, private agencies and corporate houses, there's no hope as of now for them to come and build such facilities for us.
Of course.
Good to see around Kohima or even Dimapur, like a small astroturf,
the futsal
grounds happening. I wish more of these things happen. If individuals and families and small groups can do this, why not the government? So for the government, I think it's important to create opportunities, create facilities, and we in the associations and the clubs and individuals give all possible effort. If all of us come together like that, I think we can begin to see sports developing. Otherwise, wait for season to come, start playing, win this trophy, that trophy. That time when Life Sports was also playing active senior football, we have won most of the senior level football trophies in those years. But I feel like even if we are Nagaland champion, we are nowhere.
In regards to the athletic association, like how you mentioned, I also joined around the same time before the pandemic happened and all. So not using this as an excuse, the pandemic and all, but even I was really excited because we had a lot of things worked up. I'm sure the same goes for NFA, like with the new team. You guys were also just planning so many things and look ready for the challenge to make the change, right? And one of the things I feel very strongly about is like associations has to be very active. Obviously the injection of funds depends on the national bodies or the governments, but year-round activities, whether it's small or big, events, training, coaching, seminars, whatnot, but just year-round activity. One example that I stated last time also is like the American schools and the education system that they have set up in regards to sports. How sports athletes, mainly basketball, baseball, American football there, but it's streamlined so well, it's structured so well that a promising school student is already being recognized by scouts at the tender age when they're teenagers and all, that they have potential and they're groomed in that way. Like how we just connecting with what you said about why can't we pursue education in line with something that we're going to do. So these people, he's a good basketball player, he's going to be a good basketball player, they're already funneling him towards becoming a great basketball player. By the time he reaches college, their sports system is so huge that the NCAA is, their basketball games are so big, their American football games are so big, the college level games are just as making as much, not as much, but they're making so much money also. It's being televised. You see it here in India also. So besides having a non-stop running schedule, I feel that it should be integrated with the education system. Our sports is unfortunately just a side subject with the least importance, like in our education system.
See, for us to have sports academies is challenging.
Yeah.
Even the government cannot do so. How can private agencies do? No? So the best way in Nagaland situation is tie up with schools.
Right.
Institution is already there. Many schools have football grounds, and most villages, most towns have grounds. See, for even in Shizami we have 3 grounds. So any school willing to do regular training and all, the grounds are all theirs. But one thing, like for everyone to participate in sports development in the state, starting from prospective and aspiring young boys and girls, parents especially, they also should be willing to pay for the training that their children will be undergoing. Paying hundreds and thousands of rupees for a piano lesson, guitar lesson, drums lesson, voice lesson, but not willing to pay even 100 rupees for football lesson, for a basketball lesson, or athletic training, because it's sports. That's how we treat sports. How can we develop Olympians or professionals in that? And so parents and teachers have to regard. Schools also can take this as a profession, seriously take as include in their curriculum, but parents also, I think it's important for them to
see this as like a potential career choice,
willing to pay, and with that payment take care of the coach's fee, pay the coaches well, and when they are trained and when they go to competitions, now the sports officials are engaged, referees come, officials to conduct and all, pay them well. So way, right from players up to the association level, if everyone is benefiting, if the clubs are benefiting, if officials are benefiting, it can be sustained and sports can continue. But in our case, Nagaland football, even at the senior level, only football coaches and footballers are benefiting. Club owners and team owners, they pay coaches and footballers. The rest, everyone is losing. We spend 2-3 lakhs to participate with a prospective winning team in a tournament, major tournament. Even if we become champions, we get 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, whereas expenditure is double that. And so it's only the coaches and footballers who are gaining at least something. So I believe everyone must benefit to sustain. That's one of the reasons why I strongly say during the first NPL also, it's so important to regulate and design in such a way that the football clubs benefit. Only then such leagues will survive.
That was one of our main concerns actually. And they're not going into why it couldn't continue and all that. But in fact, survival and prosperity of the business, the clubs, football clubs, that was it held that much importance up our priority list, because in order for the league to survive, the clubs have to survive. If the clubs will survive, then naturally the league will carry on, right? So that was
footballers also, I'd like to request the footballers also, to be loyal to their clubs, to their teams, not jump from one to the other too easily and too randomly. Even before reaching the state level, we see so many who are already crazy about payments, money. In the middle of a tournament also, there are those players who leave the team and go to other tournaments for higher payments, we see that kind of things, those kind of things happening. And so all of us come together, from footballers to football coaches to referees to officials. I think it's important. We need people who are associated or passionate about sports. They can be politicians, they can be businessmen, they can be church people, let it be anyone, men and women, but passionate people
and capable people
get into sports associations. And for sports associations to focus on sporting activities, eat less, invest more in sporting activities. the excitement of sports, footballers wearing the best of jerseys and track suits and sports kits and going into the field, the excitement is priceless. But Nagaland situation, like especially at the lower level, 20 will be playing sports, 80 others, altogether 100 will be eating, feasting for 1 week, 2 weeks. All our funds are spent like that.
Right.
So with the same amount that we are getting, if we can invest in sporting activities, I think outside of the government also so much can happen.
Yeah, so much can happen. Indeed, we have a lot of things to fix. We have a lot of introspection to do. Like we said, the blame game starts from the top to the bottom. So everyone has to, all the stakeholders, anyone who's involved with sports and the sports industry must reflect also. How can they change? How can they become better for the development of sports?
Cut down on the food in sporting activities. One thing I'd like to suggest is to cut down on the unnecessary framed certificates and participation certificates, giving away to all the guests and participants, starting from the special guest down to all those who attended the program. All these are unnecessary
expenditures.
Avoidable expenses actually, especially sports associations and students' unions. How many frame certificates? What will we do with all those? Give the right kind of merit certificates to the students and to the sports persons.
Yes.
The rest, certification, framing, all these are unnecessary actually. Spending thousands and thousands every event.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, this is one amongst many things that we have to get right with our situation and we have to fix. But I'm positive about it. Like you said, it doesn't have to. It might not happen in a year's time, 2 years time, even in our tenure, it might not happen. But I'm positive about the change. I think good things are going to happen
very
for
positive
sports.
That we're given the right support, the right trainings and opportunities, and the right facilities. I believe Nagaland will become a sports state.
Right.
I believe in 10 years time or 15 years time, we can have Olympians in a number of disciplines.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same way.
All of us have to come together in this, starting with the government.
Right.
We are a government-based society. And therefore, the government has to take note of this fact and then, invest and help and get the right people engaged in sporting activities. Right from the government department out to all the associations and every one of us.
The sports policy, the government's new sports policy should be out and put into effect, like strictly. And like we said, there's so many things we can talk about and we'll carry on. I think we've gone a little extra on this also, but sports is something that we're both passionate about. So I want to end it on this note. The Premier League. Give me your top 4 prediction. Who's going to finish first, second, third, fourth in the Premier League? It can be a biased United fan opinion or it can be a
I want to be biased.
Yeah, okay.
Man United. Then City. Chelsea. And Liverpool.
Okay. It's funny because mine is the same list with Chelsea and United switched. So mine is Chelsea, Manchester City, United and Liverpool. That's how I feel also. But let's see. Just one game down and such a long season to go.
Good start for
good start for both. Yeah. By the time this episode comes out, it might not be such a good start because another match will have been played and we don't know the result now.
Yes.
Yeah. As we always end this podcast is with the message. I'm sure you're aware of this. 3 messages. The first message to your friends and family. Second message to people someone you've lost touch with along the way. And the third message is to Nagas in general. And we'll sign off on that note.
Well, when it comes to family, I'm very privileged to have the 4 ladies in my family. My wife, Bode. Then my 3 daughters, Tekeline and Melly. God is partial to me, in fact, to have blessed me with 4 beautiful and wonderful ladies. The love and care they give me, they are my biggest friends, and I'm very, very grateful to them. I'm where I am and I'm who I am largely because of them. And my larger family, I'm one person right from my young days till today, having got the full support of my family members. So I grew up with that kind of a support, and I'm grateful to my family. Continue to show your support just like you all have supported me all these years. I want to encourage you all to support the younger generation. Our children today need the kind of support that you have given to me. They also, today's children, our children needs your support. Believe in your children. Discuss and share, but letting them do what they want to do in life. I think it's so important.
Very important.
Many
yes.
children are living to fulfill their parents' dreams.
Desires, yes.
Yeah.
Very true.
And so, thank you all family for having supported me all these years through thick and thin. I'm one who have friends from the kids to the eldest people in the community. Friends from all ages. I make friends very easily with boys, girls, young, old. And there are so many friends in my life who pray for me even daily, who support me in so many ways. And so I take this opportunity to thank you all for your encouragement and prayers. With your blessings and prayers, I move on. Continue to, as much as you all have inspired me, continue to share, extend help, pray, and inspire many, many other souls. I am proof who is inspired by you all. You can inspire many and touch many other souls, just like you did mine. I'm on social media, all over social media, in almost Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And so my old friends whom I have lost touch, please kindly get to me. I'll be so happy to connect with you all. Friends and people who are watching this podcast, I'd like to encourage all of us to learn to encourage and appreciate good and honest people. We live in a society where the corrupt are so honored. And I want to encourage all of us to learn to encourage and support the honest people, be it in the church, in the government sector, private sector, public sector, be it politicians, whoever. When we start honoring the honest leaders and people in general, even the common people, our young generation will get inspired to be likewise, to become men and women of integrity. And therefore I encourage our people to do likewise. I also would like to encourage our people to learn to appreciate and encourage the living people. There's no point saying a whole lot of good things after someone is gone and dead. There's so much negativity happening in our society, and therefore I'd like to encourage all of us to learn to appreciate the living, even honor them if possible. I wish the government also honor the living people. There's nothing wrong naming a road after someone who is still alive, naming a stadium who is still alive, naming a public property after someone who is alive. Why only after their death? So this is something I believe strongly in encouraging and appreciating the living. And together, let us love God, love people, love our respective professions, do our best, and love ourselves. and be available to serve people, to serve God the best that God wants us to be. Continue to inspire, continue to bless. And thank you so much, Asalie, for having me in this Shout Out podcast. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful message. And just along those lines about what you said in the end about you want to encourage people to acknowledge people while they're alive and living, right? That is the underlying theme of our podcast. Shout Out Podcast. We want to appreciate people right now at this moment of time. Give them their flowers. So yes, thank you for being a blessing to our society, Mr. Colo Mero, and all the best with your life ministries in the future. All the best with your new post as the NFA Vice President, and not all the best with your Manchester United season this year.
Come on.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
I wish together we can win it. Share the title this year.
All right.